Did you know that 2024 is the year of elections, with more than 64 elections that will take place in 2024 across the globe, which will cover around 47% of the entire world's population? Naturally, people will vote for the party that they think will suit themselves best and suit the nation best. But what does God say about the qualities of a leader? So in this video, we're going to look at 5 key biblical concepts, along with the supporting verses, that show what God looks for in leaders, especially leaders of countries, irrespective of political preference. The first point is moral and ethical leadership. Proverbs 11:14 teaches us, "Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety." This verse highlights the importance of moral and ethical leadership, which requires discussion with other people. If it's just one person making the choices, it's very likely that those choices are not going to be ideal. That's why to seek counsel among the wise. Leaders are encouraged to seek guidance that aligns with principles of justice, compassion, and mercy. Moral and ethical leadership is pivotal for effective governance, thus impacting how a nation is perceived and the welfare of its people. Government leaders who are tasked with making difficult decisions must rule wisely and with integrity. Sadly, when we look at some governments around the world, we see that there are acts of corruption, the poor and vulnerable are neglected, and there's often things that happen that are not dealt with swiftly and justly. The second point is servant leadership. In Mark 10, verse 45, we read, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Now, this is a very powerful verse that shows us that a true leader is not someone who should be served, but a leader is someone who serves others and leads by serving. If leaders want to truly build a nation, they need to be just, have integrity, and to serve the people. If a leader or a government serves the people, then the people are going to rejoice, so to speak, because the economy and their welfare is going to increase. However, if the leaders are self-serving, I don't see how that country can develop. Interestingly, servant leadership is now a part of many business programs. Such characteristics include awareness, listening, empathy, foresight, conceptualization, persuasion, community building, stewardship, healing, commitment to the growth of people, and by extension, the growth of the company and even the nation. In short, leaders that put the needs of the people first will see great results. The third point is social justice and equality. In Proverbs 31, verses 8 to 9, we read, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy." Here, this verse really reflects God's heart. God wants everyone to rule with honesty and integrity and to rule justly. The poor, the marginalized, the vulnerable, but any people group, they all should be treated fairly and equally and not taken advantage of or ignored. For a company and even a nation to thrive, all members of society need to be looked after. There should be leaders who are actively seeking justice for the poor, for those who've been wronged, especially from the marginalized or vulnerable groups. Prioritizing social justice will benefit communities as it emphasizes on equality and fairness. Time and time again, the Bible exhorts leaders to rule wisely, justly, and with integrity. However, we can see in countries around the world that this is not the case, where the poor are overlooked, where the marginalized are not given rights and other people groups are not dealt with fairly. Everyone, everyone is made in the image of God, and everyone should have equal value and rights, despite the differences in their hierarchy and position. The fourth point is accountability and transparency. In Luke 16:10, we read, "One who is faithful in a very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in a very little is also dishonest in much." This verse is really encouraging people to be transparent and to be accountable for their actions. For if someone is found to be dishonest in one small thing, it's very likely they're going to be dishonest in other areas as well. That's why leaders need to be just and fair so that everybody in society benefits and fairness is experienced by all. If the leaders of a country or a company have high accountability and high transparency, this is only going to increase the trust of the people that they should be serving, and therefore, by extension, over time, the economy and the situation, people's quality of living, etc., all these things will at some point increase and improve. The fifth and final point is compassion in decision making. Colossians 3 verse 12 says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." Granted, this verse is not directly addressing leaders of nations, it's addressing the believers. But I think this is a great principle to apply to leadership. You should be compassionate in your decision making. If compassion is brought into the decision-making process, it's actually a reflection of God's divine love for all humanity. Leaders who show compassion in their decision-making will result in a society that is much more supportive. In conclusion, the Bible offers a rich tapestry of wisdom that leaders can use to guide their nations. So whether it's moral and ethical leadership, whether it's servant leadership, whether it's social justice, whether it's accountability and transparency, or whether it's compassion, leaders who embrace these biblical principles will be able to govern wisely. To finish, I'd like to provide 3 more verses that will help leaders lead. Proverbs 14 verse 34 says, "Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin condemns any people." Proverbs 29 verse 2 says, "When the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan." And Isaiah chapter 1:17 says, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." So we can see that God wants people to rule, to govern wisely, which will help societies thrive and prosper. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting and thoughtful. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and comment on the video. And remember, faith is not fairy tales, and God is real.